Thank you. So good morning. Happy Global BA Day 2022. Thank you for joining us on such an important day for our profession. I think I'm sure it's probably the reason we're all here, unless someone's really just that interested in coffee, then in which case you're still more than welcome, and hopefully you'll join us in celebrating BA Day with us. This is also a first event for Herd Consulting, so it's our first webinar event, so it's an important day for us at Herd Towers as well. And I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by fellow member of the Herd, Carl Wrigley. That's the person who we've pin shot on there, because we're going to the coffee masterclass shortly. And also absolutely like to join by the brilliant Christina Lovelock, who I'm sure needs no introduction to many. And has probably helped attract an international audience to this event today. So,
good morning, Jamie. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So, thanks very much for being here, both of you. We're doing something a bit unusual today. So this might only happen once if it doesn't work out well, but you're here to experience it live and be a part of it. But we've got two parts of our session. So you've probably seen we're going to do first up. We've got our very own king of the beans, as we're now calling him, Carl Wrigley. Well, I'm calling him anyway, no one else is, who will be talking us through how to make a perfect brew, arguably essential for any high-functioning business analyst. And we'll then be taking a moment to show off our best mugs. So hopefully everyone's bought their best mugs or cups. But if you've not, you can just style it out and pretend it is. That's fine. No one's really going to know. But we'll be having a moment to show off those, and probably going to really position like an early morning cheers to celebrate Global BA Day and the wonderful BA community we have. So we'll be using that as an early morning cheers. Lots of people are joining as well, so we'll keep omitting them. And then we'll be spending the last 35 minutes or so on a lean coffee. So basically an Ask Us Anything session. I say ask us anything, obviously, hopefully I shouldn't need to say, but there are certain parameters maybe we'll try and stay away from. But you can basically ask us anything about business analysis, digital, our own careers, future of BA, technology, anything else you may want to ask within reason. I got, small little asterisks there. And you can add your own question or topic at any time using the functionality that's built into Google Meet. So for those that maybe are less familiar with Google Meet, if you go into the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see there is a triangle, a square, and a circle. And if you hover over it, it will say activities. And if you click on there, you'll then be presented with different options, say breakout rooms, polls, Q&A. You might not get all of them, but you probably get some of them. If you click on Q&A, you can then ask any questions by clicking the Ask a Question button in the bottom right-hand corner and asking questions in there. And for those that have maybe not been on a lean coffee type session before, everyone asks a question, and then we can all vote on the topics that people would like to discuss, or like us to discuss, or questions would like us to answer. So please vote on things, vote on the topics that are most of interest, and those are ones that will be spoken about. And obviously, the one that's at the top will be spoken about next. So that's probably pretty much it on the question side. And lastly, before I hand over to Carl to show off his budding barista skills, we will be recording the session. So I did mention that at the start, but we are recording today's session, or at least trying to record it. Hopefully it's recording now. And so if you don't want to be on the recording, please keep your cameras off for the duration of the session. Otherwise, please keep them on. So, without further ado, Carl, I'm going to hand over to you for our Coffee Master.
Yeah, cheers, Jamie. So, Coffee Masterclass with a lowercase m. So, basically, where this came from, Jamie and I were talking, so Global BA Day, what would you like to do? And immediately thought about a lean coffee with Christina and Jamie. Thankfully, Christina was willing to come along. And then the term coffee came along, and I said, well, I've been talking to Jamie for a while. I've got a new coffee machine. I've got a bean grinder. Doing a lot of work from home at the moment, working with government of Jersey, based over Leeds way. My wife is constantly pestering me about reducing the cost of £3 coffees and trips out every 10 minutes. So I said, okay, challenge accepted. Let me get a coffee machine and see where it goes. So we just thought it would be a bit of fun in terms of just going through a kind of bit of a coffee setup, Got a few different techniques. Might not get round to all of them, just conscious of time. You're probably here to hear more from Jamie and Christina than me doing a not Master of the Beans, a Mr. Bean moment of probably dropping my new phone into a coffee cup at any point. But I'll just go through a couple of quick things. Any questions, feel free to ask away. Jamie, please prompt me if you see any on the panel. I'm on my trusty phone. Obviously, it's a little bit wobbly and things, and we'll take it from there. So first and foremost, what you can hopefully see on the screen is got a bit of a coffee setup. So I'll just go through some basics at first. What we've got here is a coffee grinder. Not essential. You can get your coffee pre-ground from a lot of coffee shops, the high street ones, or my preference is always to use a local independent. But all the experts always say, grind your own coffee, makes it fresher, makes it zingier. Apparently, the caffeine boost is a little bit stronger as well. Then I've got a coffee machine. Just want to hasten to add, I'm not an advocate or a reseller for Sage, just so happens. They both happen to be from the same brand. But this is just called the Bambino. It's their entry-level espresso maker. Allows you to make the coffee, and it's got a steam wand on the side. So you can do frothy coffee, and I'll show a little bit of, I'm loath to call it latte art because I can't do, like you'll see on TikTok and YouTube, all that feathering action. Or I can make a nice white blob on the top and it looks quite appealing. So that's the best you're getting on my masterclass today. And then other equipment that comes with it. This thing's called a portafilter. You'll see it in all the coffee shops where the coffee goes into, you pack it down, and it allows the espresso to go through. Essential, but I think it's always important, is a set of scales. These are just a normal kitchen scales. I haven't got anything to established. Probably will do in the future, but I've got to convince my wife that I've made the return on the coffee machine first before I start paying out for anything else. Then you've got your milk jug. This thing's called a tamp. It's what you do to pack down the coffee. Again, you trim it, and it helps keep a nice level playing field for the coffee. So there's a little bit of noise probably going to come in a minute. Going to grind some coffee. But yeah, without further ado, we'll just go through. So first and foremost, what I'm doing is just zeroing the scales. Hopefully you can see that's on 0 grams. I'm going to take my portafilter, place it in. Got loads of different grind settings. You can hopefully see there it's down for the espresso. It's 2 shots. I'm going to make a double shot. Flat white, loosely. I'll go through the semantics if I have time a bit later on. And then grind time is how much of coffee that you need to have coming out. 12.2, because I'm looking for about 8 of coffee. That's typically what you need to create a 60 ml shot, which is a double shot of espresso. Okay.
Carl, sorry, I'm just going to maybe ask you just repeat that little bit again, so I think it went a bit jittery. Carl, I don't know if you can hear me okay. I just went a little bit jittery for one bit, so I don't know if you want to repeat the bit you said before.
Sorry, mate, you asked the question, perfect time when the grinding was going on. Sorry.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can hear me or not with the grinding machine being on. Just saying, I think we missed a couple of bits. I think with the quality of the video. Okay. So just before you actually put the coffee into the grinder.
Sure. Okay. I was going to say, what did you miss? But you won't know. So I'll go through it again. Grinder allows you to grind your fresh beans. So that's how you get your better coffee kick and your better tasting coffee. Coffee machine, this is the cheapest one that Sage do, but still quite expensive, well, according to my wife anyway. It allows you to create the espresso. White cappuccinos, etc. Set of scales. A tamp. Tamp is what you do to pack down the coffee. Milk jug for all your pouring out your milk into your coffee, trying to do your latte art. I'll give it a go today. Might not get quite the feathery action you see on YouTube and TikTok. I'm sure they mess it up plenty of times, and I'm going to go for a live stream one shot here today, pardon the pun. And then I've got this thing called the razor, provided by Sage. It's not essential, but it's a trimming tool. You go around just to make sure you've got a nice level element of your coffee that's come out in the portafilter. And hopefully what you've just seen or what you've just heard is the grinding going on. So I just put my portafilter in, pushed it on, and it's ground out all this coffee, and that's how it comes out on a bit of a lump. So I'm just on the scale floor. You can see that. It says 19 grams. I'm looking for about 18 grams of coffee. So that's a little bit much. All that means is I'll have a little bit of spillage of coffee, like you'll see anyway. I'll get some Dettol wipes later and clean them off, I promise. What I'm just going to do is flip my camera around. It'll just go onto portrait, just as a show how to tamp the coffee down. Okay, right. So portafilter, just putting it at the edge of my worktop, and then get the tamp. And what you're trying to do at the tamp is apply pressure and try and keep it as even on top as much as possible. So just gonna push it down, a little bit of spillage. And then the trick is you're trying to put your index finger and your thumb opposite to each other, because that allows you to press down and apply the pressure. You don't need to worry too much about how much you push down. Apparently the theory is you need 30 kilograms of pressure being applied down. How we're going to measure it, absolutely no idea. I'm not going to get too technical on it. It's a good push, because what you're wanting to do is hopefully see you've got it nice and packed down, a little bit messy at the moment. So what I'm going to do is just tidy it up a little, tamp a little bit more. Any of that excess, I'm just going to go off screen and chuck it in the bin. That's set up here. And then what I'm going to do is use this razor just to try and get a bit of an edge. Now, what you'll see there is that's kind of brought a lot, which is excess. So I'll just tap all that away. Tamp it down again. Just going to spin it around. I'm going to get a polish. Now, what you can hopefully now see on the portafilter is there's a little lip between the coffee that's been packed down and the lip. That's so when it goes into the portafilter, so I'll put it in here. It's all fitted in, and there's a little bit of a lip because that's where it allows the water to drain through. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've got a shot glass. Again, not essential, you can just put your coffee straight in, or I'll just put the shot glass. And the benefit of this is it's got all the different measurements on there. So it's got ounces for your imperials, it's got your milliliters. You can see that, it's got your milliliters for your metric measurements. And I'm a metric, looking for a 60 mil kind of measure to come out. Okay, so with this machine, they'll all be different. I think, Jamie, you've got quite a fancy one. You don't even have to do any of that faff, do you? You just press a button. The butler even put coffee into your mouth. With me being a little bit more raw and basic, I've just got to press a couple of buttons. It does rattle quite a bit, and it does make a little bit of noise, so apologies for that. What I'm going to do is just hold down this button, which shows for 2 shots. Imagine that not working then after all this. I've been practicing all morning as well to get it all right. Right, okay.
Carl, just while that's doing its magic, we've had a couple of questions coming on the art of coffee. Bev's asked, Bev Eddie Morgan's asked, what are your feelings on coffee bags?
Coffee bags? So the ones from Taylor, or Taylor Harrogate and things, I think I've seen. Again, I'm not that, well, I say I'm not that much of a coffee snob. I am a little bit, I don't like instant. So coffee bags, I guess, are a neat hybrid between instant and having all this paraphernalia in the office, trying to do it in a kitchen in an office somewhere. So yeah, I'm trying to be diplomatic there, Chris. I can see you just said they're terrible. The taste can leave a little to be desired. But overall, you know, it can hopefully, you know, taste a little bit nicer and things. It's a nice little talking point as well. Lots of people will look at them and go, what's that? Is it tea? And then you'll surprise them because, you know, they're still quite new coming round. Having said that, I do have another option if you don't want a coffee bag and you want to try and do something like this in the office place. So I've got a couple of other different bits of kit. If you don't want to pay out, I think all of this setup is about 350, maybe £400. So it is a little bit of an investment. If you're not that invested in coffee and you want something a bit cheaper, there are options, and I'll show those in a minute. And maybe some of those you can take into the office as well. But while we've just been answering that question, thanks for this little segue. What you'll see there is that coffee has now been produced. Lovely little pint of Guinness there. It's a little bit bigger than what we needed, but hey, we're between BA friends, right? So just gonna tilt this up. What I'm gonna do is just pour the coffee into this mug, hopefully not spill too much anywhere. And what you can see is, yeah, got the coffee. Now, if I was going to make an espresso, an Americano, well, if I was doing an espresso, that's all you need to do. Jobs are good and you've got a double espresso there, bang on. Lots of people like them kind of diluted a little bit. So if you wanted an Americano, fill that up with hot water to what you desire. What we're going to do today is a flat white, almost. It's probably a little bit too much milk for a flat white, but I'm going to go through that. But you could do a latte and you could do a cortado and a cappuccino. So what I'm just going to quickly do is grab my milk from the fridge. I'm using whole milk. I know it's not as healthy, but it does make a better coffee. Just gonna pour the milk. Oops, almost out of disaster. Pour that into there. Okay. Now, this is the fun bit. This is where I need two hands and I've got a camera and I want to kind of show you what's going on. So we'll give it a go. I'm going to move that. Going to get the steam one. Just got to purge it a little to make sure it's steam coming out, not hot water. There we go. Right. Yeah. So now I'm going to put this into the jug. This might screech a little at first. Apologies if it does. I'll try and adjust it so it doesn't. I'll see if the spoon going. Oh. Little bit of a mess. I'll clean that up later. What you'll see in there is the milk being steamed away. Now the trick is for a flat white and a latte, not a lappuccino. I don't know what that is. I haven't made that one. Is you want to create microphones. So microphone bubbles is where you put the steam just below the surface of the milk. If you wanted the cappuccino, you want big bubbles, you put the steam ones further down into the milk. That creates bigger bubbles and a more refreshing coffee. It is, Philip, exactly that. I need an octopus just to do this properly. There you go. Right. That is now hot enough. You'll see it steaming off. It's just finishing off. Okay. Cool. Right. So just flipping it around so it's easier to see. Okay. Now I'm going to put this down up here. Right. Okay. So I've got my milk. What I need to do with the milk is give her a little swirl. That just gets rid of some of those bigger bubbles. Little tap. I'm going to get my cup. Just going to tilt it on the side. What I'm going to gently do is put some of that milk in. What I'm aiming for first is a nice creamy film, and then towards the end, a nice white topping. Now, if you've ever seen anything on TikTok, if you've seen it on YouTube or wherever, what you'll have is not that white stuff immediately, and then you'll have a nice little feather. The way you do that is you get the pointer of the steam wand closer to the cup as much as possible, and then you get the thicker, gloopier milk, the foam appearing on the top. What you have all the way through is the more velvetier. But what you've got there, I'd say, is a coffee. It's not quite a flat white. So the reason I say it's not quite a flat white, technically a flat white is 6 ounces. I know this cup is slightly heavier, so it's probably between 7 and 8. A latte is over 8 ounces, and a cappuccino starts exactly at 8 ounces, because our Italian friends are very precise about it. But there you go. There's the coffee being made. Just quickly, sorry, Jamie, have you got any questions?
We've got one more question that's come in, and then I guess we should segue to the lean coffee. We've had one more question come in about coffee, and it's from Jordan Day. What YouTube videos do you watch to master the coffee making arsenal of tools? Is it a brilliant question? Yeah. Yeah, great question, Jordan. There's a guy called Coffee Kev, and he's got a website called Coffee Blog. I'll find the link when I go upstairs in a minute, and I'll share it. He is very, very geeky, very, very technical. I quite like it in terms of the advice that he gives. So yeah, he's a good guy, Kev. Very, very personal. Excellent. All right, yeah. Sorry, lean coffee. We're going to go to just very quickly. So, pardon the bin and the MacBook. 2 other pieces of kit. I've got the AeroPress. So the AeroPress is what I've used in the office in the past. You can take your coffee ground in the morning, little tub, place it in there. It'll generate similar to an espresso. You can't do the frothy milk. You'd have to just have normal milk inside it, or an Americano. The other one is the Clever Dripper. If you can't be bothered with all of that, I would suggest maybe Googling Clever Dripper. You grind your coffee, you put it in a filter bag, you leave it for 3 minutes to steep, you put it in your cup, and then it pours all the way through. So it's another great option if you don't want to go for the whole espresso stuff. But that's me with the coffee demo. I'm going to whip upstairs in a second, Jamie. But just before I go, favorite mug. This is my favorite one because it looks quite trendy. It's from a coffee shop in Leeds called La Bottega Milanese. Anyone who knows me likes to pretend I'm a bit pretentious, so that one always makes me look fancy. And then the soppy one is this one, which was created by my 3-year-old daughter, where she just wrote "Daddy" on the side and then painted it all. But it's massive, so if I made a coffee out of that, I'd just be going on the toilet all day. So it's one that I show, don't really use. But Jamie, over to you. Brilliant. Thanks, Carl. While you're moving up, we've got a couple of questions. If you can still answer them while you're moving. Can you still hear me, Carl? Yeah, I can, yeah. While you're walking up, what coffee beans do you use? Zerko has asked. Perfect question. Thank you. So the company I use is called, I'll show my camera, called Bear. They're based in Home Firth. The reason I use them is because, well, locality, really. They are quite close. So from a CO2 kind of perspective and things, and ethical, use ones close to me as possible. And I think it's a one-man operation, so kind of like to use the smaller independents, help them build their established practice up. Previously, I've used a company called Dark Woods, and I've also used one called Limini, which is based in Cleckheaton in West Yorkshire as well. But what I'd say is, wherever you live, wherever in the world, just find one that's closest to you, get to know them, talk to them about the way they process beans, and I'm sure they can come back with some great advice on what to use. Brilliant. Thanks, Carl. And then the last thing, Joe Marshall has said, can you pop round and sort a lovely strong cup of coffee out for Joe? Joe, I'll see. I'll pop round at 12:30, Joe. No problem.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Fantastic. Right. Well, while Carl's making his way from the kitchen to another room in the house for the next part, we've got a quick reminder. If you want to ask a question for our lean coffee session, then you can do that by going to the bottom right-hand corner of Google Meet and selecting the triangle, square, circle icon, which is activities. And then on there, you can then click on the Q&A part of that. And then you can ask a question by clicking on the Ask a Question button at the bottom right-hand corner. And also, please vote by clicking the thumbs up if it's a topic that you'd want to vote for Tina and I to come on to and answer when Carl joins in a moment's time. So please please do that if you've not had a chance to do that already, whether it's asking a question or voting for one of the questions that's already been asked. And in the meantime, what I thought would be a really good thing to do, but I'm thinking it might not work as well as I hoped because we can't maybe get every single camera on there. But if everyone's brought their best mug with them, can everyone show off their best mug? Tina's on brand with business analyst. Bev, do we know about Bev's? Jordan's got an E. What's the E for?
It's not mine.
Oh, right. Fair enough.
This is my stolen mug.
So Joe's been out stealing mugs this morning. Happy Global BA Day to you, Jordan. Chris, very nice pattern. I'm loving that. Look at Lisa's. I'm loving that. I'm assuming that's not an all year round mug. That's just because of the year we're in.
It's a new one. It's a new one. Yeah.
I've got Jordan next to Martin Johnson. Jordan's got an E and then Martin's got a T. So I don't know if they've worked together to get an ET kind of Halloween theme in there.
What? Joe Marshall, what mug have you got? I can't see it properly. I think you're on mute, Joe. And I can see Martin Johnson's got a T.
T for T-shaped BA, guys.
Oh, very good.
I put hours into that. I hope it's gone down well.
It has gone down well. Very, very good.
A fat one, a fat stubby one, or a lanky skinny one.
Mine's all about Canada. It's just Canada
Skate,
but it's the biggest cup we've got, and I love big cups of tea.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm loving all of the BA related references and the functional references as well, Joe. Fantastic. And we also had the ROI conversation on coffee, Carl, while you were downstairs as well. So Jordan was trying to help people craft a business case if they needed to get permission from their respective other halves. So if anyone's needing help on that, Jordan will be running a Herd Consulting branded event in the near future on how to get a business case signed off for any coffee machine.
I had to follow a PM route in the end and go for forgiveness is easier than permission. So I actually bought one, and then when it arrived, she was like, "What's this coming through the door?" I was like, "Don't worry about it. I'll costed it all up, please. Don't worry."
Very good. Well, there you are. Practical tips to take away for everyone there, whether it's coffee or anything else, I guess. So thanks, Carl, very much for a brilliant coffee masterclass. I know that's not easy, particularly using your phone, no anything else, while you're doing all that, and that was really insightful. So thank you very much. And I hand back over to you, as you're only Monday this morning, aren't you, Carl? To compare the next part in terms of the questions that have been asked so far. And please feel free to keep asking questions and voting for them while we're talking and answering them.
Yeah, brilliant. And it looks like some great questions have already come in. And fantastic to see people voting them up as well. So we've got some good themes. Just thought maybe as a start of an icebreaker, we are on Global BA Day. So coming to you, Christina, at first, what does Global BA Day mean to you, and why is it important to have such an event?
I think it's brilliant to have opportunities to celebrate our professional community and our profession. And the world is a bit dire at the moment. So yeah, when you read the news, it's all a bit depressing. So I think giving ourselves opportunities to reflect on the positive things in our lives, which are things like the community that we've got around us, and all the good things that are true for business analysts at the moment. The fact that our skill set is very much in demand, that there's a lot more flexibility in the role, there's a lot more career paths that we can follow. So I think it's great to have that opportunity to celebrate together.
Excellent. Jamie, same question.
I think Tina's done a perfect answer. I think there's only one more thing I would add to that, which is I think it's a really great event actually to get people who don't work with business analysts or aren't business analysts to hopefully raise awareness of it with non-BAs, and particularly trying to get new people into the profession. I think it can be a really, really helpful sort of leap to try and get our awareness out there as a profession brand. I probably don't think we do enough of that probably the rest of the year. I think we do loads of great stuff in our community with fellow BAs, but I think this is a great opportunity to do that probably a little bit more externally with non-BAs.
Brilliant. Great questions. Anyone got any more thoughts? Please add it into the chat. But we'll move on to the questions now. As I said, some fantastic questions being asked.
I'm going to keep us on time just so we can get through as many of these as possible. So I'm going to set a timer for Jamie and Christina to try and condense their views into 5 minutes succinct elements of it as well. If it feels like it's going quite well, may bump it up an extra minute. If it feels like we need a little bit less, I can trim it down. But roughly, we're looking at 5 minutes. First question that has got the most votes so far is from Emily Buckley, who's asked the top tips on establishing or re-establishing a BA practice within an organisation with a small team of BAs. I'll pass over to Christina at first, and then Jamie, do you want to chip in?
So this is a really great question. Thank you, Emily. What I would say is I think there's two different elements to that. Establishing is different to re-establishing, and also the small team of BAs interests me in that question. So what I would say is create a community, make sure that you're bringing something to those BAs that they want to engage with, whether that's actually kind of fun things, cakes on birthdays, time together in the office, virtual cuppers, something that brings the team together, and then create a reason for them to stay. So that would be things like knowledge sharing, the opportunity to learn from each other. I've done things in the past like watching LinkedIn Learning or a YouTube video together as a learning opportunity and taking shared notes. So you've got that multiple perspectives on learning from each other. If you can get the investment, I think going on accredited training together is also a really great way of improving the consistency and competency of the BAs in the team. But I think starting with that idea of community, giving them a reason to want to work together and have that professional identity as a BA within the organisation is my main top tip.
Brilliant, Jamie.
Yeah, I think all brilliant tips, and I think it's a really important point, Emily, you've mentioned in terms of bringing out the small team of BAs as well. So I think there's different approaches that I think you can take. I think one thing that is I found really to be really important is having a common purpose. So actually setting out what is the purpose of you existing as a practice in the first place, and doing that in a collaborative way. Otherwise, why are people buying into it? Why are they investing their time and energy into something? So I think doing something collaboratively to define that from the beginning, I think is particularly with a small team, is even more doable than maybe a practice of a few hundred, where it's probably difficult to get everyone together on a practical level. I think the second thing is, once you have decided what that purpose is, use it as a vehicle to shout about business analysis, and even little things like having creating a logo for your BA practice and things like that can help create a sense of identity, which even if you've not got a brilliant designer in house, I'm sure you can in the community. I'm sure there'll be someone in the organisation you work for that probably is good at doing graphic design, or can help you come up with something that maybe articulates what you want to be known for and the purpose of why you exist.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jamie, just what you mentioned there about purpose, and then maybe on top of that as well is that mastery. I mean, typically what I find within companies is you have other people who may not have the title BA, but will be doing something similar. So by using your small group of BAs to show that they're masters and teach others about the craft, the skills, and the art form, it can help them realize actually we're very good at what we do, and we can help educate others, and it gives them that whole purpose mastery, which comes back to Dan Pink's drive. I think the other one is autonomy, which we'll also kind of cover off as well. But yeah, hopefully that's answered some of that, Emily.
Yes, thank you very much.
Brilliant, excellent, great stuff. So the next one we have. I'm going to restart the timer. Amazingly, 3.5 minutes, guys. Keep on like that. We'll have to go into my bank of other questions if we rattle through all these as quickly as that. The next one is from Bev Addy Morgan. How can we ensure those BAs who don't have time for L&D, learning and development, understand the personal and business benefits to developing their skills? Great question. Let's start with Jamie first on this one.
Great, cheers, Carl, and a really good question, Bev. I think for me, it's understanding what someone's motivator is for learning, and I think there's nothing worse than trying to force someone to learn who maybe doesn't want to learn or doesn't see the value in it. So I think the first thing is trying to understand that motivator, and whether whether that's just because they're really a keen advocate of learning. That's brilliant. That's obviously the easiest kind of person to support. Does it help them progress in terms of their career? So about having completed bits of learning, they can't then do particular things in the remit of their role, which means it's then harder to progress. But I think also at the same time, I think sometimes almost reversing the angle of not doing learning and making people clear that actually by not keeping your learning up to date, in the world we're in, you're at risk of obviously your skills becoming dated. So I think there's a carrot approach as much as a stick approach, I guess. And I think it comes down to the individual. I think the thing I would say is also get other people who have been on and completed successful L&D opportunities, whether they be formal courses, attending events like this, watching YouTube videos, reading blogs, and get them to shout about it, and get them to shout about how it's helped them practically with something. And I think that's possibly the most powerful thing, particularly when it's peers in the same organisation or peers in the wider community that they respect.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Jamie. Just a little bit is about that imposter syndrome where people talk about it after just learning it, what do they know and things, but that period of reflection can help people learn a little bit more. In the L&D world, there's the term shuhari, which is 10% of learning is in the classroom, 20% is then applying it to yourself, and then 70% is out in practice, putting it into place. So I think that 20% is really important. Once you've learned it, share it with that community. Kind of like what I've just done there with the coffee. I mean, my internal fear was someone was going to turn around and go, that's not how you make an espresso, you've got to do it like this. If people are thinking that, thankfully you've stayed on mute. But it's kind of, just a way of sharing what you think. And we're all polite people, and we don't mind kind of being supportive and realizing it might be new craft, but people are learning and looking to encourage it on. Sorry, Christina, I'm supposed to be asking the questions that answer them, but over to yourself. Any more to add on the L&D?
Very happy to hear from you, Carl. So I think some people have a perception that learning and development is an add-on to their role, that this is their role and learning and development is something on top of. And I've always tried to frame with my teams that learning and development is part of your role. Being better at your job is part of your job. And that means that you should have time within your working day to pursue some of these learning and development activities. So there's a cultural aspect to that. That needs to be okay within the team and within the organisation for people to pursue those learning and development activities as part of their role. And then the point that you both made about sharing and highlighting that, and particularly for senior BAs and those in leadership positions, role modelling those behaviours, making sure that we're all pursuing and continuous professional development, and that sharing that with others as an expectation of continuing your BA career path. And something that I found again and again increases the interest and commitment to learning and development in a team is having entry-level roles, because those people, their role is about developing in their career, and actually they can bring in new ideas, new techniques that other members of the team that think that they're more established or more experienced, that they've actually got opportunities to learn from those newer members of staff. And it actually raises the bar across the whole team when there's that learning and development attitude, and specifically roles like apprenticeships and graduate schemes, which are encouraging everybody to think about their own professional development.
I really like that, Christina. It's just the acknowledgement that learning doesn't start at the beginning and then, reduce as you go on. People higher up have to learn as much, if not more, and then can learn from the people who, they potentially lead or are considered more junior. Certainly, this day and age, just hitting 40 this year, I won't start crying, learn a lot more about like graphic design and social media presence and things like that, which have probably, I'm too old and decrepit to kind of think about those and stuff. So great to kind of pick up on all those points as well. Great stuff. And look at that, we were bang on time again. We had 15 seconds, even with my waffling. Awesome. So let's crack on to the next one. It's from Angela Kaufman. Hi, Angela. Thanks for joining and for the question. Angela, are you on the call? Are you able to
I'm here.
come off?
Yes.
Brilliant. Now, so the question is tips to support BAs who are given all the extra jobs on a multidisciplinary team.
Yeah.
Now, am I inferring that to be in our agile type space, or is right? Okay, so we're thinking about it from an agile angle, although it can be applied to non-agile kind of ways, but just helping to frame that a little bit more. Thanks, Angela. So Jamie, I'll just repeat the question. Tips to support BAs who are given all the extra jobs, in quotation marks, on a multidisciplinary team. And Tina, we'll start with you on this one, if that's okay.
It's nice to be helpful, and it's nice to be the person on the team that people go to and say, can you help me with this? The problem with that is that if that eats up so much of our time that business analysis is not getting done, then we're causing a different gap on the project and for the organisation. So I think sometimes helping BAs to see that being this kind of overly helpful, saying yes to everything, does have an impact. And maybe their time would be better spent on other activities, and maybe even outside of their current team or project. If they're saying, well, I've not really got enough business analysis to do, so it doesn't matter that I'm doing all of these extra around the edges jobs, we can point to other projects and other products that don't have the level of business analysis support that they need. So first of all, we need to make sure that all the BAs see it as a problem. Where they do see it as a problem, I think it needs to be an open conversation about what some of those extra jobs look like. And if it's a kind of office housekeeping stuff that most people don't really want to do, then we can make that part of our backlog and make sure that we're putting things like this on the Kanban, so it's not always falling to the same people to do those additional tasks, and that people are able to pick them up rather than assuming that it can just fall to the BA. I think the other point of that is making sure that everybody on that multidisciplinary team understands where the BAs can offer the most value, and so that they're not just trying to fill somebody's time because they don't understand how else they could be offering value to the team.
Absolutely zinging final answer there, Tina. Love that one. Jamie, anything to add?
I think the main thing I is probably some more expansion of Christina's point. I don't know if someone's might just be on mute possibly. It's an expansion from Christina's points really around. I think it's highlighting almost the opportunity cost, isn't it, of doing other work that means that certain analysis activities can't be done. And I think sometimes, particularly where individuals in the team may have worked with BAs who are less experienced or less comfortable in certain aspects of the role, I think that can then obviously set an impression for the next business analyst they work with. So it might sometimes need someone who's more experienced sometimes to go into that team and guide the individual, but also guide the team, and also had to help that help articulate that opportunity cost of spending X amount of time doing really helpful things, but also at the same time all these other things that are arguably just as important, if not more important, aren't getting done, and the risk of that.
Just going to have to climb back up on my soapbox about something there, Carl, because Jamie's just reminded me about something else. With kind of the mythical self-organising team only works if we understand the skills and interests and roles of everybody else in the team. So the self-organising team can't happen by accident. It can only happen through conscious discussion about people's roles, skills, preferences, previous experience, and having a real focus on people as individuals and what they can bring to the team.
And it's actually one of the 12 principles of Agile is to talk about, it's people over tools and such. So I always, when I've done training courses in the past to talk about that, it's talking about, the introvert, extrovert elements of people. People think typically a product owner might be quite extrovert, a coach might be quite extrovert, BA could be introvert. Well, I'd like to think I could step out a little bit more and be a bit more extroverted. And I know a couple of POs who are quite introverted. So actually, who does what in terms of those activities can be commonly agreed between those individuals in terms of what works best for how to get the best out of that team to be performed. I just wanted to add in, Karen added a really good comment on this question from Angela as well, saying showcase techniques like context diagrams and help teams to understand the useful outcomes that come from producing these types of outputs, which backs up what you were kind of alluding to as well, Tina. Just thought it was really well put, Karen. The only other technique I would say, maybe one for any of your agile coaches, and Angela, I'm not sure if this is being done within the company, is chartering. it comes from the less principle, where you start to work out what are the boundaries, what are the communications that you have with the different teams, and how you start to communicate on a regular basis and what their interactions are. But chartering can also happen within the team itself and how each of the different individuals performs. But great question. And again, guys, we're hitting everything on time. Who says BAs can't deliver on time? Not us, especially on a day like today. Right, okay, so next question is from Chris Piatire. Chris, what can we do as a community to better challenge the myth that there is no BA in Agile? Oh, lovely. It's almost like it's seamless, isn't it? We've segued onto this one from what we've just been talking about. What can we do as a community to better challenge the myth that there is no BA in Agile? Quite right, Karen. Let's start with Tina on this one.
So I was going to say let's start with Jamie, because Chris has heard me talk about this topic a lot. So Jamie, you go first.
Thanks, Tina. Well, I'll come back in a minute then. Yeah, to be honest, I've got probably a slightly controversial view to some, in that actually the business analysts are needed more than ever in Agile delivery. And the reason being, for me, is there's more uncertainty. You typically work in a faster paced environment. You're testing and learning as you go throughout. You're constantly discovering new stuff. And I think with that uncertainty, the fast-paced nature, things constantly learning new things as you go throughout, there's actually more analysis than ever that's needed, and it's needed consistently throughout every single sprint, rather than being certain peaks that you may see in a sort of V model or waterfall model of delivery. So I would say BAs are needed certainly more than ever, and I think there's a case to bring that to life in terms of talking about some of those examples in where business analysts can help in terms of unpicking that uncertainty and making things clearer. Karen has mentioned context diagrams again. I think just as we were coming onto this question, of course, that's one brilliant way of doing it. Of course, there are many others as well. And I think also with that fast-paced nature, you need to make sure we're investing in the right things, because sometimes it's quite easy just to jump and prioritize something that may be perceived to be of higher value, and then spend a couple of weeks or whatever your sprint cycle is on a particular feature, and that could have no value and create no value. So good analysis skills are needed more than ever, and I think even though there's some brilliant product managers and product owners out there that can sometimes do that, I think they often need a lot of support and probably don't have the same depth of toolkit and expertise than what we can offer, unless maybe they've been a BA before, and obviously, of course, they're bringing that toolkit with them. And I'd say you probably haven't got enough time to wear both hats and do them both effectively. So that would be my response. Tina, have you got anything you wanted to add to that?
In the question, Chris used the word myth, and I mentioned before the kind of mythical self-organizing team. Now, everyone knows that self-organizing teams is part of one of the 12 principles of Agile, but the full sentence that comes from says, the best architectures, requirements and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. And I think people overlook that first part of the principle, which is around architecture, requirement and design, because all of those three things are still needed in Agile. So people who have those skills, such as business analysts, are very much needed in those self-organizing multidisciplinary teams.
Yeah, if I'm allowed to chip in slightly, because we've got a couple of more cracking questions we'll move on to. I've been asked to provide coaching and training to teams who are looking to formalise Agile in the past. And even more controversial to what Jamie said before, I've actually suggested less BAs may be beneficial, and actually BAs spanning a couple of squads. Not saying it always has to take place, but there's a term called trusted advisor, where, similar to what Tina you mentioned there about the design and the architecture higher up, the BA sits in that space rather than at squad. The risk is the BA, if they don't have enough work to do, they end up confusing matters by getting involved in testing and some really deep technical elements, which similar to what Martin said earlier, T-shaped is great, but too vertical means that they start treading on other people's toes metaphorically. So actually less can be more with BAs and in Agile and spanning those squads, which Karen, you've just mentioned you currently have in where you're working. So fantastic. Okay, I think we've got time for one more question. Jamie, would you suggest?
Yeah, we can do one more. I'll just come back to the less is more debate. I think just to close it off, I think there's I think it depends on what you're comparing it to, doesn't it? And I think for me, the need for business analysis as a thing is certainly more in Agile, even more than there would be in Waterfall, because obviously you've got all the things that you need to do in terms of understanding the requirements of what we want to deliver, understand how that works with the constraints of different architectures. And of course, you can span multiple teams in a Waterfall delivery project, or you can span multiple teams in an Agile delivery project. And I think that, you know, and whether that's 2, whether that's 1, whether that's 3, whether that's 4, all depends on the scope of what you're working on, I think. But I think we've got one more before we do a wrap up. Yeah, is it
okay. So the last one, which got the upvotes, there's a couple more, but unfortunately we're not going to get to them today. Maybe we'll pick them up as a follow-up session. It's come from Sal Holt. Hi, Sal. Have you any tips for having individuals, clients, colleagues quantify the desired business analysis outputs of the discovery phase of a project? Jamie's nodding, so we'll go straight to Jamie on this one.
I guess my question back would be, why do you want to do that? So what is it you're wanting to show by quantifying the desired business analysis outputs? I don't know, Sal, if you are you on the call and you're able to add a little bit more to it? If not, I can take it with an assumption what I think the why is.
I was pressing on mute in the wrong place. I am on the call. So yeah, it's really around when you can persuade your teams to actually include you in the discovery phase of a project, because quite often they just tag you in at the end when everything's already been decided, and there's no opportunity to discover things. Rather than rather than have a conversation about perhaps what the desired outputs are of that discovery phase, people just tend to be a little bit hand wavy. You just go and do some business analysis for a couple of weeks and come back, or even worse, come back with a backlog, please.
Yeah,
that's what we want you to do. And it's almost like, yeah, we need to do a bit more discovery before we can do that. But again, I think it's important to, at the beginning, have a quantifiable thing that you're going to do, and getting people to tell you what their expectation is can be quite challenging sometimes. Sorry, that was a bit long.
No, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for adding more context onto that. And yeah, I think that's a challenge. I've seen that in the past as well. So you're not alone to start off with in seeing that. And I think that the big thing there is actually just shifting away from outputs even and artifacts and talking about outcomes. And I know, you know, that's a popular thing to say, but I think there's a lot of truth in that. What is it we're going to do in that discovery phase? Well, yes, we might produce particular artifacts, we might produce particular things, and Karen's bringing back the context diagram again, which is great to see, and rightly so. But I think actually, where there's more uncertainty, there's more value for business analysts in terms of what we can help with and what we can add. And I'd be talking about, okay, we can offer certain service activities if you've got a clearly defined PA service, rather than talking about particular artifacts as such. Of course, you might have then a set of artifacts you want to do for each discovery, but that'd be my recommendation. Tina?
I'd just say talk about it in the negative. People often find it easier to articulate what they don't want. So say, you know, how could I get this really wrong? How could I really let you down on this piece of work? And then once you've got that list of things that they don't want, you can turn it around to try and understand what they do want.
Brilliant. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. And thanks, Al, for a great question. So I think that kind of wraps up on where we get to. So Jamie, do you want over to you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll ask you a question, Carl, now then. So what would your biggest takeaway be for people coming away from going into Global BA Day as we're now in it? What would your biggest takeaway be? You're asking people.
I think it's about helping everyone realize, you know, there is a community out there and a fantastic group of people. I've loved today so far, and hopefully get on a few more of these calls and meet people. connect on LinkedIn, and likewise, let's keep that conversation going and finding out all the interesting topics across the different industries and the different sectors, but they're all common to what we're doing as a practice. So hopefully just connect a little bit more and help us realize, what a fantastic role that we're doing as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Carl. And great to see Chris is putting his BA decoration straight after this call. Fantastic. Post-it notes on a string. Very, very good. Tina, what would your call to action or takeaway be for people good way from the call?
I think that, the fact that everybody's got up early, come to this session, made time in their diary is so impressive and inspiring. I would say keep that momentum going. There's lots of other events going on for Global BA Day, but also taking that message back to your teams or your organisations, even if you're the only BA in the team, in your organisation or in the team, share with people that this is what's happening today and that you've been celebrating this, and this is why the BA role is important. So continue that celebration and using this opportunity to showcase the good work that we all do.
Brilliant. Thank you. My ask would be, I guess all of what Carl and Tina have said, I think they're brilliant takeaways and asks. But also try and get the next wave of people involved and interested in business analysis. So if there's something you can do, whether that's a talk to non-BAs in your organisation, going into a school where your children, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, whatever are, talk about business analysis, talking at a local college, writing a blog, TikTok. 40% of all Gen Z use TikTok as their primary search engine. So if you are on TikTok and a master of the socials, then maybe do something on there to talk about what business analysis is. We have put some links on the chat as well. So there are lots and lots of different events happening today as part of Global BA Day. You will see there's one which is a link to the IBA events. There's lots of IBA-led events happening. There are also lots of wider community-led events happening, such as this one. Carl has also put a plug for Art Heard Consulting, so please follow us if you're not already following us. And Philippe, the BA Cafe, every Friday, 11:30 to 12:30 UK time. And tomorrow there's a combined brown bag BA and BA Cafe with IRBA UK chapter during the Global BA 24-hour event. So please do check them out. Save those links. They will disappear off the chat in a moment. So I'll just give people a few seconds just to copy them or open them as a tab on their browser. Please try and get along to the things, and hope you've enjoyed this session. If it's of interest, please let us know. Do something on LinkedIn, drop us a message, and then we'll try and get other events set up in the future. But thanks so much for joining. Thanks so much for getting up so early, and thanks for bringing your best mugs as well. Happy Global BA Day. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, guys.